Did you ever play telephone when you were little? Even as a kid, I loved the absurdity of it. One idea passing through a dozen minds and coming out mangled, stranger, and usually with a gorilla in it. The emergent madness of a bunch of reasonable people passing an idea from imperfect brain to imperfect brain. Well, would you believe that there's a cooler telephone?
Back around 1925, a group of surrealists led by Marcel Duhamel sat around a table, got drunk, and started playing word games. As André Breton recalls, their word games were contrived so that elements of language attacked each other in the most paradoxical manner possible, and so that human communication, misled from the start, was thrown into the mood most amenable to adventure.
One of the games they played involved writing a sentence piecemeal, each person adding a word to follow their predecessors, but each only seeing the word that came immediately before theirs. The sentences they produced, Breton wrote, gave us the greatest impression of bewilderment and never seen.
The completely black light lays down day and night the powerless suspension to do any good.
The made-up shrimp hardly enlightens some double kisses.
And, most famously, the exquisite corpse shall drink the new wine.
This game, now called The Exquisite Corpse, is still with us. It lives in Mad Libs, in Gartic Phone, and in Jackbox games like TKO and Dictionarium. Any game where people make something together without seeing the whole picture of what they are creating. An exquisite corpse bears the mark of something which could not be created by one brain alone.
This video is the product of 14 brains, video essayists who collaborate on the Essay Library Discord server. Together, we made 2 essays 1 minute at a time. We each had 4 days to make a 1-minute segment of an essay, and then pass it on to the next person in line, like a relay race. The first essay was made forwards. Each essayist made their segment after watching the segment immediately preceding theirs.
The second essay, which is totally the better one, shout out Team Backwards, was made backwards. Instead of starting at the beginning, this video started at the end. Each essayist made a 1-minute segment and handed it off to the person who would come before them in the video. The ending was made first and the beginning last.
This is our exquisite relay. We invite you to open yourself to the greatest impression of bewilderment, to throw yourself into the mood most amenable to adventure, and to drink of this new wine.
Wallace O'Wallaby McGinty is a British animated icon summoned by the Church of Ardman. He was brought into this world with flesh full of clay to spread the knowledge of cheese wizardry. The legends say that his teachings used to be passed down from generation to generation, around the telly with some fish and chippy. Unfortunately, he did this 4 times! So today, let's go on a journey to rediscover the greatest philosopher the universe has forgot. This is the ancient doctrine of Wallace O'Wallaby McGinty.
It all began on the day when our cheese lord Wallace was skimming through some light philosophy of stoicism, aka proto-cheese wizardry. What did it contain? Just some overly serious dudes turning their suffering into meaning. No sooner had our Lord Wallace finished than he noticed an abominably scandalous fact. He had run out of his supply of cheese. But inspired by this no f***s given philosophy, a bold decision was made. The moon is made of cheese. Why don't I just go there? And thus marked the birth of cheese wizardry, inspiring a nobody to build a spaceship to the moon with no rocket science. He gave us the first cheat code for human progress. We could now jump light years, reach the end of the universe. God had officially died. We achieved synthetic a priori judgments. All thanks to a Brit too lazy to replenish his cheese on Earth. Because why do things the easy way when we can do it the hard way?
You know, doing things the hard way really sums up stop motion animation. It took Nick Park 7 years to make A Grand Day Out, which makes sense as he was working alone without the option of using modern computer animation. But nowadays, you can rig a 3D model to dance faster than you can say the word plasticine. So why bother with stop motion? Because of how human it is. Countless creation myths repeat the story of man born from clay, like that of Prometheus and Athena, who molded man from clay and imbued man with life, respectively. This idea that a common and seemingly worthless substance can be the medium of life is what gives these stories power. Nowadays, CGI can accomplish any impossible feat, but clay will always be clay. Limited in its expression in the same way humans are limited by their imperfect bodies. Love, terror, awe. It's one thing to communicate these things with the expression of a perfectly attractive model or computer effects that seem to bend reality, but to say, all I need is clay, it's almost unbelievable. Which begs the question,
why don't we see more animation like this? The answer goes hand in hand with the rise of CGI, which of course, like all animation, is capable of bringing human genius to light in a unique, spectacular way that can almost trick us into believing the impossible. But CGI isn't being used as fuel for human imagination. Instead, it comes down to time and money. Why spend money on expensive costumes and a realistic city set when you can just buy some morph suits, parade the actors in front of a green screen, and get a team of burnt-out animators to recreate New York? Maybe with some aliens destroying the place. Why spend time making a single film in stop motion when you can shoot 3 or more CGI-heavy films in a single year that will probably make more money? I think that's why CGI has this reputation of being a cheap and lazy tool. Because it's being used as a cheap and lazy tool, the only purpose of which is to get that bottom line just a little bit higher. A mentality that has consumed more than just the animation industry.
Some people will always find a cheap and easy way to do anything. Some people care most about efficiency and capital, and less about creating the sublime and the inspiring. Whether as creators or as an audience, we want to see artistic excellence, regardless of the labor-inducing classic media or the more streamlined digital techniques. Yet it can also be hard to tell the difference between the earnest attempt of an amateur and the lazy work of a skilled charlatan, or even someone being incompetent on purpose for the sake of a joke. So what do we do if they aren't like us, if they don't want beauty and truth in the way that we seek beauty and truth? How do we motivate people to pursue excellence in art?
Motivation is fleeting, transient, inaccessible. You can't wait for it. It can come from within with the right energy and remain out of reach only a moment later. It is often found in the external world with the influence of others. You have to look with an open mind. To open the mind, you have to look. So much can be said with a look that lasts for seconds.
But when you're looking, be aware that appearances may be deceiving. Images and ideas come hand in hand, but one doesn't directly communicate the other. Images create a sort of reality, but it is a created one. To open the mind, you have to look, but be mindful that in looking, you bring your own internal reality to what you see.
Television! Teacher! Mother! Secret lover.
Must be from a real estate agent.
If images can be manipulated, so can the argument that they make. After all, we're video essayists. We make stuff up, assigning meaning to a disconnected or maybe even unconnected set of images and ideas. And if the voiceover is nicely recorded, if there's slick motion graphics, if the music drops at just the right time, you might even accept it as truth. So look with an open mind, but tread carefully.
In 1969, Hollis Frampton made a film about a lemon. More specifically, he made a film about how the direction of light on a lemon alters its appearance. This film is called, you guessed it, Lemon. There's no sound, just 7 minutes of this lemon on a black background. The lighting changes very slowly, so it's difficult to even notice the changes right away. In 2014, Evan Meany turned Lemon into a game. Here, you move your mouse to the right to spin the light source around the lemon. It's a little unwieldy, at least on itch.io. I bet the arcade cabinet version would offer a smoother experience with its trackball, but I kinda like the jitter. Where the slow pace of Lemon the film makes the changes imperceptible, Lemon the game puts you directly in charge of it. Meany calls this process remediation, using new media to rethink old media like film. If you're looking to create something, there are a few different ways to incorporate the old into the new. One way is through story structure. So,
for example, here's my copy of Catch-22. In the back, there's a handwritten timetable from the author, Joseph Heller, that details the chronology of the book, like a set of blueprints for the story. Reading this table gives you a pretty solid feeling for the narrative. Yossarian is a World War II bomber, he's trying to get out of the war, the captain keeps raising the mission count, you get the idea. It's a pretty scathing, if straightforward narrative. But here's the thing. What's described in this table is nothing like how the story actually plays out. In the actual book, this table is chopped up and shuffled around, mixing together different time periods and points of view until the original narrative is almost incomprehensible. And this new story, created by playing with the old, is somehow even more powerful. Catch-22 in chronological order is, on its own, a complete work of art with its own set of blueprints. And yet, by playing with the art, we get an entirely different story. A new structure brings us a new art.
But sometimes art helps us make sense of structure, of those blueprints. Because when we intentionally play with art, like we've discussed, it can teach and show us things we might never have seen before. Little changes to structure, acknowledgements of structure, rejections of structure. These can all make statements just as profound as art, which pays no mind to structure at all. Calling the audience's attention to a challenge of structure doesn't always make the piece worse. In fact, it can elevate it. Playing with structure can make all new, beautiful, unique things. Sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes it just feels good. Sometimes it's musical, even. Maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves. How does music structure relate to this?
I like to think of narratives the way I look at music. There is a pleasing structure in most narratives that is rhythmic in a way. Generally, music is structured as such. Intro, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro. And film is often structured similarly. Exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion. The majority of films follow this formula, and the majority of songs follow that formula, but they can be broken. There are films like Pulp Fiction which don't necessarily follow a story structure, but because Tarantino is a very deliberate storyteller, he's able to make a film work even though it doesn't follow the structure that normally is pleasing. You can find music that starts at the chorus, and you can find films that start at the rising action. In the end, it's all about being creative.
Turns out there's a lot to understand about the world, and brains are pretty complicated. So the biggest cognitive shortcut we've adapted is pattern matching.
It goes in the square hole.
Fool me 23 times and I should probably see it coming by now. We see faces everywhere because a lot of things match the pattern of human faces, and we zeroed in on recognizing that pattern. That's also why storytelling is so integral to the human experience. Stories are how we communicate those patterns to one another.
And then I ate some rotten berries. Man, I had some strong gases eking out of my butt that day.
The way we understand the world is by narrativizing it, by telling stories about it. So naturally, we have patterns that arise in the way we tell stories as well. Ever heard of the 3-act structure? But even though stories typically use similar patterns, different kinds of stories are going to follow different conventions and have different ideas about what patterns they're expressing.
But putting all that aside, I worry that our mere ability to understand complex cause and effect relationships might come down to the kind of stories we like. Because cause and effect relationships are everywhere, right? In physics, in music, in jokes, in narrative, and our way of understanding all these structures are tangled together. So history plays out as tragedy, as farce, because we insist on shoving history into a cause and effect structure that we understand, that we like. The structure of tragedy, or the structure of the joke, which are the same. We want the punchline concealed in the setup. We want the third act foreshadowed in the first act. We want the effect to be readable in the cause, but we also want to be surprised by it. And tragically, or comically, we demand the same of science and history too. We reject whatever doesn't match our appetite for complexity. We need to be reassured that we could have seen it coming all along, but to also be humbled by the fact that we didn't. Too much chaos makes an ending inscrutable, and too much determinism makes an ending boring.
Because here's the thing about endings. They're always certain, but they're never sure. Everything ends, but that doesn't stop us from asking,
Is it over? Is it over? Is it over, Fats?
This is an ending, but I don't know to what. These words mean something different to me now as I write them alone and unmoored from context than they do now as we are watching them together as the culmination of the ideas of half a dozen people smarter than me. Their parts are done, but they're still with us. This moment is comprised of moments that have ended but that aren't quite over. When this video ends, you'll keep thinking about that incredible handoff between Kiki and James, or that sharp, unexpected insight from Couch, or the bright intensity of Dot's enthusiasm. You've got us with you now. Because that's what you are, too. A collection of things, moments, feelings, relationships, experiences that have ended, but that aren't quite over. So sure, this video is ending, but it isn't over until you are. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video and want to know if we're always this weird, our channel and social information are in the description. If you're into video essays and experimentation, please come join us on the Essay Library, the Discord server where this crazy experiment came together. We'd love to see you there. And before you go, please make sure to leave us a comment letting us know which team you think did a better job and why it was Team Backward.